Welcome to our fourth video on market microstructure. In this video, I am using my spreadsheet, which I have sent to all of you, titled Orders and Quotes. And this is meant to show you how liquidity is provided by specialists in a system that is defined as an order-driven system, like that used by the New York Stock Exchange and the other exchanges that are virtual. Okay, so here's what we have here, where you see me circling the cursor, is a limit order book. Bunch of prices. Here you see the ask price, $13.41, the bid price, $13.40. On this spreadsheet, in this column here, column C, original size, for orders that are indicating willingness of the limit order placer to sell shares, I happen to use a minus sign. That's just to make this spreadsheet work. In the real world, there's no minus sign. You know that if you see a limit order book like this, above the ask, those are other sell indications of sell interest, and below the bid, those are indications of buy interest. But the negative sign, the minus signs here are just to make this particular spreadsheet do things that spreadsheets usually don't do. Okay, so here's the original size. So we assume that there's 125 shares available at $13.41, or someone is willing to sell 125 shares at $13.41. We also see someone's willing to buy 125 shares at $13.40. There's an additional 125 shares available for sale at $13.42 and $13.43. And then you look here in the column E, OCS, or original cumulative size, and kind of watch this. At the $13.41, there's 125 shares. We know to ignore the minus sign. At $13.42, at a price of $13.42, again, at a price of $13.42, there are 250 shares available, in the sense that anyone who's willing to sell at $13.41 is also willing to sell at $13.42. And analogously, at a price of $13.43, where there's a unique 125 additional shares, we can say there's 375 shares available to be sold at a price of $13.43, because anyone who's willing to sell at $13.41 or $13.42 is also willing to sell at $13.43. So this is an original cumulative size column. Okay, the new size column we'll see later. And same with buy. We started the bid $13.40, 125 shares. Here's somebody willing to pay $13.39, 125 shares. Just by assumption, I kept them all the same. But the original cumulative size would be 250, because anyone who's willing to pay $13.40 is also willing to pay $13.39, and so on. And you can see, because I kept the unique size constant at 125, the cumulative size increases by 125. So 125, 250, 375, 500, and so on. Okay, so this is our limit order book, and these are our assumed bid and ask quotes. I happen to reproduce them over here, the original. Okay. Now, what this spreadsheet does is it helps you understand how exchanges respond to orders. So up here you have order type, and then here in column I, you click on this little thing, and let's say we want a limit order, and let's say it's a limit order to buy, and let's say we want to buy 400 shares. And our limit price is, let's say we're willing to pay, let's say we're pretty aggressive. We're willing to pay $13.45, or better, okay? And so when I enter that, I've entered all the data, and let's look what happened. Now you see, well, first of all, you can just check in the cell. New bid, new ask. The new bid is $13.40, the new ask is $13.44. Let's see what happened over here. Notice how the new size column shows some zeros. Well, think about it. If we're willing to pay $13.45, then when our order to buy arrived at the exchange, we're buyers, we're looking for sellers, sellers ask. So here's this 125 shares, we got that. This 125 shares, we got those too. This 125 shares, we got those also, okay? and we wanted 400 shares. So we got, these three summed to 375, and then we ended up getting 25 of these shares. In other words, we actually paid $13.41 for 125 shares, $13.42 for 125 shares, $13.43 for 125 shares, and $13.44 for 25 shares. And we can see over here a little area of the spreadsheet called execution report. And it shows 400 shares were filled. Our order to buy was filled to the extent of 400 shares, and that was our entire order. So there's no SLO, no standing limit order. Okay. Now, I want to show you something kind of interesting. To make this spreadsheet work was an interesting challenge way back when I created this. I just want to show you this cell right here to calculate the number of orders that fill. It's kind of interesting to see it. And there it is. I guess this is kind of blocking your view here. I don't know how to move this timer thing. I can't move it, but you can see that cell is pretty interesting. Equals if, and, nested ifs and ands, and all sorts of amazing stuff. I created this spreadsheet, and it gives me a headache to look at. So I'm glad it works. But just give you an idea what some Excel spreadsheet cells can look like when there's an awful lot of condition testing going on. So yeah. So when you have to create spreadsheets, don't complain about them being too big. You can think back to that cell if you like. Okay, so what I've shown you here is that a limit order to buy 400 shares will fill entirely, and we see what we get over here. Okay, we would actually pay different prices for different shares, and your execution report would give you an average price paid, and you can figure that out. It would be calculating an average of your purchases here, and that's how that works. So if you choose to use this to help you understand things, I suggest that you close the